The groom shares his deepest secret, unaware that the bride's father was hiding and listening. Derek Thompson was breaking out in a cold sweat as he adjusted his tie for the 5th time in the last 5 minutes. The past few months had been the most stressful of his life, and now, just minutes before walking down the aisle, he felt the weight of all the lies he had told. It was then that his best man, Mike, approached him with that nervous smile Derek knew so well. It was the same smile Mike had when he was about to collect on something or deliver bad news. "Dude, we need to talk," Mike whispered, pulling Derek into a more secluded corner of the hall. "Not now, Mike. In 10 minutes, I'm marrying Ashley." "That's exactly why we need to talk right now." Mike lowered his voice even further. "About that money you borrowed." Derek felt his blood run cold. He quickly looked around to make sure no one was listening. The hall was filled with elegantly dressed guests, all chatting animatedly while waiting for the ceremony to begin. "What about the money?" asked Derek, trying to keep his voice steady. "Mr. Tony sent word that the deadline is today. He wants to receive at least half by the end of the reception." Derek's stomach churned. Mr. Tony was the local loan shark, known for being patient up to a point, but ruthless when he lost his patience. Derek had turned to him 3 months ago when he realized he needed to maintain the facade of a successful businessman to win Ashley's family's trust. "I know the deadline is today, Mike. Do you think I forgot?" Derek ran his hand through his hair, trying not to mess up his hairstyle. "But look at this place, man. Look at all the important people here. This family has real money." "And that's exactly what worries me," Mike said, looking around nervously. "If they find out you don't own any company—" "They won't find out," Derek interrupted. "After I marry Ashley, I'll figure out a way to pay it all off. Her father has even mentioned helping me expand the business." Mike shook his head in disapproval. "You're getting in deeper and deeper with this lie, Derek. It started with you pretending to be a businessman. Now you've even created a shell company." "It's not a shell company. It exists. It's properly registered," Derek defended himself. "It exists on paper, man. On paper. You're a street vendor, just like me. The difference is I own up to what I am." What neither of them knew was that on the other side of the curtain dividing the hall, the retired Colonel Richard Anderson had stopped to adjust one of the decorations on his dress uniform when he overheard the first words of the conversation. At first he thought about moving away to give the young men privacy, but when he heard the word loan shark, his military instinct made him stay still and pay attention. Richard Anderson was a 62-year-old man with impeccably combed grey hair and an upright posture that betrayed his 25-year military career. He had retired as an army colonel and had since dedicated himself to the investments he had made throughout his life. He was a man of rigid principles who valued honesty and character above all else. "Mike, you have to understand," Derek continued, unaware of his future father-in-law's presence on the other side of the curtain. "I truly fell in love with Ashley. When I met her at that state university party, I had no idea her family had all this military tradition, all this money." "And why didn't you tell the truth from the beginning?" "Because I knew they would never accept a street vendor for their only daughter." Derek's voice was heavy with anguish. "You saw how they welcomed me when I said I was a businessman. Colonel even invited me to dinner at their house several times." From behind the curtain, Richard clenched his fists. He remembered all the conversations he had had with Derek over the last 6 months, all the family dinners, all the times he had praised the young man for his dedication to the business. He felt betrayed, completely deceived. "So now, man, how are you going to keep up this charade after the wedding?" asked Mike. "I'll figure it out. Maybe I really can set up a legitimate company. The colonel already said he has contacts who can help me." "Using the money he's going to invest in you, thinking you already have experience as a businessman." Mike shook his head. "Derek, this is turning into a snowball. It's going to blow up in your face one day." "It's not going to blow up." Derek tried to sound confident. "I just need to buy some time to be able to pay Mr. Tony, and then I'll figure out a way to make the company actually work." Richard felt the blood boil in his veins. Not only had Derek lied about his profession, but he was also planning to use the family's money to pay off debts with a loan shark. Everything he had admired in the young man, the apparent determination, the supposed business success, was an elaborate lie. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, Please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, do you remember when we were kids selling popsicles on Miami Beach? Mike changed his tone, trying to appeal to nostalgia. We always said we were going to make it in life, honestly. And I am going to make it. Derek became heated, but quickly lowered his voice again. I'm just giving destiny a little nudge. By lying to the family of the woman you love? I didn't lie about my feelings. My love for Ashley is true. The rest is just a matter of time. Richard thought of his daughter, of how she had come home radiant after meeting Derek. He remembered how Ashley had talked about finally finding a different kind of man, someone who wasn't just interested in the family's money. The irony of the situation made him furious. Derek, are you sure it's worth starting a marriage based on lies? Mike insisted. It's not based on lies. It's based on love. The other things are details. Details? Man, you owe $15,000 to a loan shark. Richard almost lost his balance. $15,000 was a considerable amount, especially for someone who presented himself as a successful businessman. If Derek really were what he claimed to be, he wouldn't need to resort to loan sharks. I know how much I owe, Mike, and I know I'll be able to pay it. How? By selling soda on Miami Beach? Listen, Derek grabbed his friend's arm. After I marry Ashley, I'll be part of the family. The Colonel already said he's going to introduce me to some of his friends who have businesses. I'll really get my foot in the door of the business world. Using her family as a stepping stone? Using the opportunities that will come up, Derek defended himself. Everybody does that. Nobody makes it in life alone. But not everybody starts out by lying about who they are. Richard closed his eyes, trying to control his anger. For all those months, he had genuinely liked Derek. The young man showed respect for family values, treated Ashley with affection, and seemed to have solid principles. Discovering it was all just an act was devastating. Mike, I need you to understand me. Derek's voice grew quieter, almost a whisper. I grew up with nothing. My mother worked as a cleaning lady to support me. I never had a real chance to get a proper education. I never had the chance to meet the right people. So what? That doesn't give you the right to deceive anyone. I'm not deceiving. I'm just giving myself a chance. A chance based on lies. A chance to show that I can be more than I've always been. Derek looked at his own hands. You know how it is, Mike. We were born on the same South Side. You know what kind of future is in store for people like us. Richard felt a pang in his chest, not from compassion that Derek's words might arouse, but from the way the young man was using his humble origins to justify the lies. He himself had come from a simple family, but had built his career and his fortune through honest work and dedication. Derek, do you think Ashley wouldn't accept you if she knew the truth? Maybe she would. But what about her family? Derek gestured toward the hall. Look at this place, man. Look at these people. Do you think they would accept a street vendor into the family? If she truly loves you, the family's opinion shouldn't matter. It's easy to say that when you're not in my shoes, Derek sighed. When you don't feel like you've finally found the chance to have a better life. Richard shook his head silently. On one hand, he understood the difficulty of social mobility in the United States. On the other hand, he couldn't accept someone using those difficulties as a justification to deceive his family. And what if they find out after the wedding? Asked Mike. They won't find out. The company is registered. It has an EIN. It has an address. If anyone goes to check, they'll find everything in order. But it has no employees, no activity, nothing, Mike insisted. For now. But after the wedding, that will change. Richard thought of all the conversations he had had with Derek about business. The young man always showed superficial knowledge, but Richard had attributed that to modesty. Now he realized it was just generic information anyone could have gotten on the internet. Derek, do you realize you're about to promise fidelity to a woman who doesn't even know who you really are? She knows who I am. She knows I love her, that I would take care of her with my own life if necessary. The rest are details. $15,000 in debt to a loan shark is not a detail. Mike got worked up, but quickly lowered his voice again. I will pay that debt. After the wedding, I'll figure it out. How? The Colonel already said he would help me get some contracts. He has friends who work in security and logistics. I can get into that business." Richard felt increasingly indignant. Derek was not only lying, but also planning to use the family's contacts to solve his financial problems. "Have you thought about what will happen if Mr. Tony loses his patience?" "He won't lose it. He knows I'm a good payer." "You haven't paid him anything yet, Derek. You only took the money 3 months ago." "But I've always paid my debts. He knows that." Mike looked around nervously before continuing. "And what if he shows up here today? What if he decides to collect in front of everybody?" "He won't do that. It's not in his interest to cause a scandal." "Are you sure?" Derek hesitated for a moment before answering. "I am." But Richard could tell from his voice that the young man wasn't sure at all, and that uncertainty only increased his concern about the situation. "Derek, I'm going to tell you something as a friend." Mike moved closer. "You can still back out. You can tell Ashley the truth now before the ceremony." "Tell the truth?" Derek seemed horrified by the suggestion. "Are you crazy? The party is already starting. There are over 200 people here. Better to tell the truth now than to be found out later." "I won't be found out because there's nothing to find out. The company exists. It's all documented. If anyone wants to investigate, they'll find a legally registered company. A shell company." "A company just starting operations," Derek corrected. Richard had to lean against the wall. The way Derek had planned everything showed a capacity for manipulation that left him stunned. It wasn't just an impulsive lie. It was an elaborate plan to deceive the entire family. "And when you two go live together, when she wants to see your office, your employees, your clients, by then I'll have managed to get the company running for real." "How long do you think that will take you?" "A few months, a year at most." "A year of lies?" "A year of preparation for a better life," Derek defended himself. Richard felt torn between anger and a strange admiration for the young man's determination. It was undeniable that Derek had worked hard to maintain the charade, but the way he had deceived the family was unforgivable. "Mike, you need to understand something." Derek looked directly into his friend's eyes. "I love Ashley more than anything in this life. I would do anything for her, including lying to her, including doing whatever is necessary to be worthy of her. But you are already worthy of her. You're a hard-working, honest guy." "Honest?" Derek let out a bitter laugh. "I sell soda on Miami Beach, Mike. I wake up every day at 5 in the morning to push a cart through the streets. Where's the honor in that?" "Honest work is honorable," Mike replied firmly. "For whom? For you? For me? Or for the traditional military family on the other side of that curtain?" Richard felt a tightness in his chest. On one hand, Derek was right about the social prejudice that still existed. On the other hand, he himself had been raised to value work, regardless of what it was. "Derek, do you think Ashley cares about that? Maybe she doesn't. But what about when the first child comes? She'll want them to study at the best schools, to have the best opportunities. How am I going to provide that by selling soda?" "You can grow professionally in an honest way." "Of course I can. In 20, 30 years, maybe I'll manage to have a better life. But what if I don't have 20 or 30 years? What if I only have this one chance?" Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Margaret, Richard's wife and Ashley's mother. She was an elegant 58-year-old woman with impeccably styled blonde hair and a warm smile that lit up any room. "Derek, darling, how are you?" She approached with a radiant smile. "Anxious for the big moment?" "Mrs. Margaret," Derek immediately changed his posture, assuming the pose of the exemplary son-in-law. "I'm very happy, and a little nervous, to be honest." "It's normal, my dear. Richard was terrified at our wedding." She laughed sweetly. "Speaking of him, you haven't seen my husband around, have you?" Richard froze on the other side of the curtain. If Margaret found him there, it would be hard to explain why he was hiding. "No, Mrs. Margaret, I haven't seen the Colonel." "How strange. He said he was coming to talk to you about a surprise he prepared for you two." "A surprise?" Derek tried to hide his nervousness. "Ah, but I can't tell. Otherwise it wouldn't be a surprise." Margaret winked. "I can only say it has to do with your business." Derek's stomach tied itself in a knot. What kind of surprise-involving business could the colonel have prepared? What if he had investigated the company? What if he had discovered it was just a front? Mrs. Margaret, you couldn't give a little hint. No, 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 she wagged her finger playfully. You're just going to have to wait until after the ceremony. Richard, on the other side of the curtain, wasn't referring to any surprise. Margaret was just trying to build suspense, as she always did, but Derek's nervous reaction confirmed her suspicions about the young man's true intentions. Well, I'm going to look for my husband. The ceremony will start soon. Margaret kissed Derek's face affectionately. You are a wonderful son-in-law, Derek. Richard always says how lucky he is to have you in the family. After Margaret walked away, Derek was visibly shaken. Dude, you look pale, observed Mike. I wonder what surprise the colonel has prepared. Relax, it must be something good. Maybe he got some contract for you. Or maybe he investigated my company and found out it doesn't work. Stop being paranoid, Derek. If he had found out anything, do you think he would let the wedding happen? Derek reflected on his friend's words, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. In the last few days, he had noticed some strange looks from the colonel, some more direct questions about the business. Richard, for his part, was torn between confronting Derek immediately or waiting to see how far the young man would take his lies. Part of him wanted to protect his daughter, but another part wanted to better understand the motivations behind all that acting. Mike, do you think I'm doing the right thing? It was the first time during the entire conversation that Derek showed genuine doubt about his choices. Dude, you want to know the truth? I do. I think you are making the biggest mistake of your life. Derek was silent for a few seconds before answering. Maybe, but it might also be the only chance I have to have a different life. A life based on lies isn't a life, Derek, and a life selling soda forever is. If it's an honest life, yes. Easy for you to say. You didn't fall in love with a colonel's daughter. Mike sighed deeply. Derek, have you ever thought that maybe Ashley fell in love with you precisely because you are different from the other rich guys she knows? She fell in love with Derek the businessman, not Derek the street vendor. Are you sure about that? I am. You saw how proud she was when I told her I had my own company. You saw how her family welcomed me when they thought I had money. Richard remembered when Derek had been introduced to the family. He had truly been impressed with the young man's apparent business maturity, but now he realized he had mistaken nervousness for seriousness. And if she finds out the truth after the wedding, insisted Mike, by then I will have managed to get the company working. She will never know it was once a lie. And the loan shark's money? I'll figure out a way to pay it. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Richard felt increasingly worried. Derek didn't have a real plan to solve his problems. He was simply hoping things would magically work out after the wedding. Derek, let me ask you something. Mike moved closer. When you met Ashley, did you already know she was rich? No, I found out later when she invited me to meet the family. And why didn't you tell the truth at that moment? Derek hesitated before answering. Because I was already in love. And I saw how she looked at me when she thought I was a businessman. I didn't want that look to change. But what if her look didn't change? It would, Mike. It always does. Are you sure? I am. Because I've been through this before. This was the first personal revelation Derek made during the entire conversation, and both Mike and Richard were attentive to hear more. What do you mean you've been through this before? A few years ago, I was dating a girl. Nothing serious, but I liked her. When she found out I was a street vendor, she completely changed towards me. How old were you? 22. Man, you were 22. It was a different time, a different maturity. People don't change, Mike. Prejudice is prejudice, regardless of age. Richard reflected on Derek's words. Would he himself have accepted a street vendor for his daughter? Honestly, he probably would have had initial prejudices, but that didn't justify the lies. Derek, have you ever tried being honest about your profession with any woman after that? What for? To go through the same humiliation again? To give someone a chance to accept you for who you are? Nobody accepts it, Mike. You know that. You yourself have tried dating upper-middle-class girls. How did that end? Mike fell quiet. Derek had a point. He himself had faced prejudice because of his profession. But that doesn't justify lying, Mike insisted, weaker this time. For you, it might not justify it. For me, it does. Derek defended himself. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just giving myself a chance. You're hurting Ashley. You're starting her marriage based on a lie. I'm starting her marriage based on love. The rest are details. Richard shook his head. As much as he understood the difficulties Derek faced, he couldn't accept the way he was handling the situation. Derek, let me tell you something. Mike changed his tone of voice. If you continue with this lie, she will find out eventually. And when she does, it will be much worse than if you told the truth now. Why would it be worse? Because she will realize you didn't have the courage to trust her. She will realize you doubted her love. This observation hit Derek like a punch in the stomach. He had never thought about it from that perspective. I didn't doubt her love. Yes, you did. If you believed she truly loves you, you would tell her the truth. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. If you are sure she loves you, why are you afraid of her reaction? Derek was silent for a long moment. Richard could see the young man was genuinely reflecting on his friend's words. Because I'm afraid of losing her, Derek finally admitted. And you think starting a marriage with lies isn't a way of losing her? It's a way of trying not to lose her. Derek, you are digging your own grave. Maybe. But at least I'm trying. At that moment, Richard heard footsteps approaching. It was his wife Margaret, clearly looking for him. "Richard, Richard, where are you?" she called. Richard needed to get out of there without being discovered. Carefully he moved away from the curtain and walked in the opposite direction, going around the hall to appear from the other side. "Here I am, Margaret." He appeared as if he had been in another corner of the hall. "Where were you? I looked everywhere for you." "I was checking the final details with the event staff. The ceremony is going to start in 5 minutes. You need to take your place." "Of course, let's go." As he walked beside his wife, Richard felt torn. On one hand, he wanted to protect his daughter from a marriage based on lies. On the other hand, he knew interrupting the ceremony at that moment would cause irreparable trauma for Ashley. He decided to wait. He would observe Derek during the ceremony, pay attention to every word, every gesture, and then he would make a decision about how to proceed. "Richard, are you all right? You look worried," Margaret observed. "I'm fine, it's just fatherly emotion." "Our daughter is radiant. I've never seen her so happy." "Yeah, I know." "You like Derek, don't you?" Richard hesitated before answering. "He seems like a good young man." "Seems." "Richard, you yourself have said many times how hard-working, dedicated and respectful he is." "That's true." "Then why the long face?" "It's not a long face, it's just a father's worry." Margaret smiled and kissed her husband's cheek. "Relax. Our daughter chose well." If only she knew, thought Richard. If only she knew that the exemplary son-in-law she so admired was actually a street vendor in debt to loan sharks. When they reached the altar, Ashley was already in position. She looked stunning in her white dress, her face radiating happiness. Seeing her father, she smiled and waved discreetly. Derek took his place beside Ashley. Even from a distance, Richard could notice the young man's nervousness. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His hands trembled slightly. "My love, are you okay?" Ashley whispered to Derek. "I am. It's just nerves." "Relax. In a few minutes we'll be husband and wife," she smiled. "Yeah, I know." Ashley noticed something strange in Derek's tone of voice, but she put it down to the natural nervousness of the moment. The officiant began the ceremony. Words about love, fidelity, and honesty echoed through the hall. With every word about truth and sincerity, Derek felt more uncomfortable. Richard watched his son-in-law's reactions closely. It was evident the young man was going through an intense internal conflict. Part of him felt sorry for Derek, but most of him was still outraged by the lies. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When it came time for the personal vows, Derek hesitated for a long moment before he began to speak. "Ashley." His voice came out choked. "When I met you, my life changed completely. You made me want to be a better person." Ashley smiled, her eyes already welling up with tears. "I promise I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your love," Derek continued. "I promise I will work every day to give you the life you deserve. I promise I will be honest with you." His voice trembled on that word. "At all times, in joy and in hardship." Richard noticed the hesitation on the word honest. It was as if Derek was forcing himself to say something he knew wasn't true. "I love you more than anything in this world," Derek finished his vows. It was Ashley's turn. "Derek, when I met you, I finally understood what true love meant. You are different from all the other men I've ever known." Richard paid special attention to that phrase. Had Ashley fallen for Derek precisely because she believed he was different from the other opportunistic men she had known? "You showed me that there are hard-working, dedicated men who earn things through their own effort," Ashley continued. Each word was like a dagger to Derek's heart. She had fallen in love with the exact false image he had created. "I promise I will support you in all your dreams, in all your projects." Ashley looked deeply into his eyes. "I promise we will build our future together, based on love and trust." The word trust echoed in Derek's mind like a painful echo. "I love you, and I am proud to become your wife," Ashley finished. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the marriage, Richard felt an almost irresistible urge to stand up. But he looked at his daughter, saw her happiness, and decided to remain silent. The ceremony continued. When the officiant declared Derek and Ashley husband and wife, the hall erupted in applause. Derek kissed his wife, but Richard could see there was no genuine joy in his eyes, only relief at having gotten through the most difficult moment. During the cocktail reception that followed, Richard watched Derek from a distance. The young man tried to appear happy, but it was clear he was worried about something. It was then that Richard noticed a strange man circling the hall. He was a man of about 40, short, fat, with a prominent belly and clothes that tried to disguise his humble origins. He carried a tray, pretending to be one of the waiters, but his eyes were constantly fixed on Derek. When the man approached Derek, Richard paid special attention to the interaction. "Excuse me, sir," the man addressed Derek with a forced smile. "Could you accompany me for a moment?" "Now is not a good time," Derek replied nervously. "Ah, but I think it's the perfect time," the man insisted, still maintaining the smile. "After all, it's a day for settling accounts, isn't it?" Derek looked around, searching for Mike. When he found him, he made a discreet signal for him to approach. "Mr. Tony, you promised you'd give me until the end of the party," Derek whispered, "and I will keep my promise. But I wanted to have a little chat with you first." Richard couldn't hear the conversation, but from the body language, it was clear something tense was happening. Derek was clearly uncomfortable, and the man presenting himself as a waiter had all the posture of someone collecting a debt. Mike approached the group and greeted the man with familiarity. It was evident the three knew each other well. "Mr. Tony, what a pleasure to see you here." Mike tried to keep his tone casual. "The pleasure is mine, Mike. Beautiful party, isn't it?" "Very beautiful." "Must have cost a fortune." Tony looked around appreciatively. "Lucky the groom here is a successful businessman, right?" The irony in the man's voice didn't go unnoticed by Derek, who grew even more nervous. "Mr. Tony, can we talk after the party?" Derek tried to delay the conversation. "Of course we can, but I wanted you to know that I brought some friends with me. They're eager to get to know you better." Derek paled. The presence of Tony's friends at the party meant the loan shark was prepared to cause trouble if he wasn't paid. "How many friends?" asked Mike. Just 3 or 4. Discreet people, don't worry." "Mr. Tony, I will get at least half the money today," Derek tried to negotiate. "Half? Boy, our conversation was about the full amount." "I know, but nothing," Tony interrupted, though he kept the smile. "You had 3 months to get your affairs in order." 3 months. Richard watched the scene from a distance, trying to understand what was happening. It was clear Derek was being pressured over some kind of debt. "Listen, Mr. Tony," Mike tried to intervene. "Today is my friend's wedding. Wouldn't it be better to resolve this another time?" "Mike, my boy, I am an understanding man. That's why I waited until today. But today is the final deadline. And if he can't get all the money today, asked Mike. Then it will be a problem, a big problem. The veiled threat made Derek sweat even more. He looked in the direction of Ashley, who was chatting animatedly with some friends, completely unaware of the drama unfolding just a few feet away. "Mr. Tony, I need a few more days." Derek tried one last negotiation. "Days?" Tony gave a low laugh. "Boy, do you think I'm a bank to keep pushing back deadlines?" "It's not that. It's just that I couldn't gather it all by today." "Well, you should have, or you shouldn't have borrowed it. I know I made a mistake. But now I'm married, I'm part of an important family. I will get the money." "Important family?" Tony looked around again. "Indeed. Must be nice to have a rich family, right?" Derek realized he had made a mistake by mentioning the importance of Ashley's family. Now Tony knew he had married for financial reasons. "That's not what you're thinking," Derek tried to explain. "Oh, really? Then what is it?" "I got married for love." "Of course you did." Tony gave an ironic chuckle. "For love and for money. Perfect combination." Mike noticed the conversation was taking a dangerous turn. "Mr. Tony, let's talk about the amounts. How much can Derek get today for you to accept?" "Half today and the rest in 1 week." "1 week is too short," Derek protested. "Too short? You've had 3 months." Tony's voice rose slightly, making a few people nearby look in their direction. Derek gestured discreetly for him to lower his tone. "Fine. Half today, half in a week," Derek agreed, not knowing how he would keep the promise. 7,500 today, 7,500 in a week, no exceptions." "Understood." "And Derek," Tony moved closer, "if you don't meet next week's deadline, I'll have to talk to your wife and her family to explain how you got the money to pay for this party." Derek's blood ran cold. The threat was clear. If he didn't pay, Tony would tell Ashley and her family the whole truth. "That won't be necessary." Derek tried to keep his voice steady. "For your sake and hers, I hope not." Tony moved away, circulating through the hall again with his waiter's tray. Derek stood still, trying to process the conversation he had just had. "Man, you're in deep trouble," Mike whispered. "I know. 7,500 today? Where are you going to get that money?" "I don't know." "And the other 7,500 next week?" "I don't know that either." "Derek, you need to tell Ashley the truth. Now." "Tell the truth?" "Did you hear what he said? If I don't pay, he'll tell her everything. Better you tell her than him." "I can't." "Not today. It's our wedding day." "And when will you be able to? When he shows up at your house demanding payment?" Derek looked toward his wife. She was radiant, posing for photos with her friends. How could he destroy her happiness at that moment? "I'll figure out a way to get the money," Derek said, more to himself than to Mike. "How?" "I'll think of something." "Derek, $7,500 isn't money you find under the mattress." "I know that. You'll have to borrow from someone." "From who? Who's going to lend $7,500 to a street vendor?" "No one. But maybe someone will lend it to a successful businessman who just married a colonel's daughter." Mike's remark made Derek realize he would have to use his new position in the family to get the money. It was exactly what he had planned to avoid. "I don't want to use Ashley's family to solve my problems." "Derek, you already used her family to create the problems. Now you'll have to use them to solve it." "It's not the same." "Yes, it is. You lied to impress the family. Now you'll have to lie to get money from the family." "I won't lie. I'll ask for a loan." "Based on what collateral? Your fake company?" Derek fell silent. Mike was right. Any loan he got from the family would be based on the lies he had told. "Mike, I have no choice." "Yes, you do. You can tell the truth." "And destroy my marriage on the first day?" "Your marriage is already destroyed. You just don't want to admit it." "It's not. I love Ashley, and she loves me." "That's true. Her love is based on a lie. Love is based on the person I want to be, not the person I am today. That's the biggest nonsense I've ever heard." "Why?" "Because you can't marry the person you want to be. You marry the person you are." Derek reflected on his friend's words. On some level, he knew Mike was right. but he couldn't find the strength to destroy everything at that moment. "Mike, just give me a week. If I can resolve this situation, I'll never have to lie about anything again. And if you can't, then I'll tell the truth." "Do you promise?" "I promise." Mike looked him in the eyes, trying to assess if Derek was being sincere about this promise. "All right, 1 week. But if you don't resolve it, I'll tell Ashley the truth myself." "You would do that?" "I would, because I'm your friend and I won't let you sink any deeper into this lie." "I understand. And Derek?" "Yeah?" "Good luck getting $7,500 by tonight." Derek looked around the hall, observing the wedding that had cost much more than $7,500. Ironically, he was surrounded by wealth, but had no access to any of it. That's when he saw Richard approaching. The colonel was coming toward him with a serious expression that made Derek's heart race. "Derek, can we talk for a moment?" Richard asked. "Of course, Colonel. In private." Mike discreetly stepped away, leaving father-in-law and son-in-law alone. "Derek, I wanted to speak with you about that surprise Margaret mentioned earlier." "Oh, yes. She said it had to do with business." "Exactly." Richard looked directly into Derek's eyes. "I spoke with some of my friends who work in corporate security. They're interested in learning more about your company." Derek's stomach tightened into a knot. "Interested how?" "For potential partnerships. Security contracts, logistics, that sort of thing." What kind of contracts?" "Big contracts, Derek. Contracts that can change a businessman's life." Derek tried to maintain his composure, but it was evident he was nervous. "That's great, Colonel. Thank you very much." "Don't thank me yet. First, they'll want to get to know your operation better." "How so?" "Visit your facilities, meet your team, understand your business model better." Each word was like a stab to Derek's heart. How would he show facilities that didn't exist? How would he introduce a team that was never hired? "When would they like to make this visit?" Derek asked, trying to buy time. "Next week. They're very busy people, so when they show interest, they like to act quickly." "Next week," Derek repeated, as if processing the information. "Is there a problem with that date?" No problem. It's just, well, we'll be on our honeymoon." "Of course. How silly of me. When do you get back?" In 2 weeks." "Perfect. Then we'll schedule it for the 3rd week. That gives you time to rest from your trip and to prepare properly." "Perfect," Derek agreed, knowing 2 weeks wouldn't be enough to create a real company from nothing. "Derek, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Colonel." "How are you doing financially? Do you need any working capital to prepare for these larger contracts?" The question caught Derek completely off guard. It was as if Richard was reading his mind. "Well, now that you mention it, it's always useful to have additional working capital for larger operations. How much do you think you would need?" Derek hesitated. Should he take the opportunity to solve the problem with Tony? "Maybe $15,000. 15,000 is a considerable amount." "Yeah, I know. Maybe it's too much." "No, it's not too much. In fact, for contracts of the size we're talking about, 15,000 is even a little low." "Really?" "Really, if you'd like, I can advance 20,000 to you. Consider it an investment in my daughter's future." Derek almost fainted. $20,000 would solve all his immediate problems and still leave 5,000 to try to put together something that looked like a company. "Colonel, that would be incredible." "Great. I'll provide the money on Monday. You can stop by my office to pick it up." "Monday? Is there a problem?" No. Monday is perfect." But Derek knew that Tony wanted the money that same day. How would he explain that he would only have the payment on Monday? "Colonel, I was wondering if it would be possible, if you might have this money today." Richard looked at Derek with curiosity. "Today? What's the rush?" "It's just that, well, there are some suppliers who are demanding payment, and since we're traveling tomorrow—" "I see. Let me see what I can do." Richard stepped away to check his banking options. As soon as he was alone, Derek felt a mix of relief and guilt. On one hand, he was solving the immediate problem. On the other, he was getting even deeper into debt with lies. Mike approached him again. "How did the conversation with the colonel go?" He's going to lend me $20,000. What? Mike almost shouted but quickly lowered his voice. How did you manage that? He said he has some friends who want to do business with me. He offered the money as working capital. Derek, do you realize this only makes your situation worse? How so? You're going to owe $20,000 to the Colonel, based on a company that doesn't exist. But I'll have money to pay Tony and still have some left over to try and set something up. Set something up in 2 weeks? Why 2 weeks? Because when you get back from your honeymoon, the Colonel is going to want to see results. He's going to want to know how the businesses he's financing are doing. Derek hadn't thought about that perspective. He was so focused on solving the immediate problem that he hadn't considered the long-term consequences. Mike, one thing at a time. No, Derek, now it's 2 things at the same time. You're going to owe Tony and the Colonel, but I'll have the money to pay Tony. And how are you going to pay the Colonel? I'll figure it out. How? With what money? With the money I'm going to earn from the contracts he arranged. What contracts, Derek? You don't have a company. I will have one. In 2 weeks, I'll figure out a way to have one. Mike shook his head in despair. You're digging a deeper and deeper hole. I'm solving my problems. You're creating bigger problems. At least I'm trying. Trying what? To deceive more people. Trying to have a better life. Based on lies. Better lies than misery. Derek, you're losing touch with reality. The reality is that in an hour, I'll have money to pay Tony and I'll still have some left to try and make something work. And when the Colonel finds out you deceived him, he won't find out. Of course he will. How are you going to explain a company that has no office, no employees, no clients? I'll figure out a way to have all that. In 2 weeks? If necessary. Derek, you're delusional. I'm being optimistic. No, you're being irresponsible. The conversation was interrupted by Richard's return. Derek, I managed to sort it out. I can make a transfer right now. Really? That's fantastic, Colonel. I just need your account details. Derek provided the banking details, still not believing his own luck. In a few minutes, he would have enough money to solve all his immediate problems. Done. The transfer has been made. It should hit your account in a few minutes. Colonel, I don't know how to thank you. No need to thank me. We're family now. Your success is Ashley's success. Every word from Richard made Derek feel worse about his lies. The Colonel was being genuinely generous, based on a trust he didn't deserve. While we're at it, Derek, let me give you a business tip. Of course, always keep detailed records of all your expenses and investments. My friends are very particular about that matter. Detailed records, understood. And complete documentation of all contracts and partnerships. Of course. They'll want to see everything very well organized. Each instruction from Richard was another weight on Derek's conscience. How would he document contracts that didn't exist? How would he organize records for a shell company? Colonel, thank you so much for everything. Really. You're welcome, my boy. Welcome to the family. Richard walked away to greet other guests. As soon as he was alone with Mike, Derek got the transfer confirmation on his phone. It's here. $20,000. He showed the phone to Mike. Congratulations. Now you owe $20,000 to the Colonel instead of $15,000 to Tony. At least now I have time to think of a solution. What solution, Derek? What solution? I don't know yet, but I have time to think. You have 2 weeks to create a company out of thin air. If I have to, I'll create one. How? I'll rent an office, hire a few people, get some clients. With what money? With the $5,000 that will be left after paying Tony. $5,000 to set up a company, are you crazy? It's a start. Derek, $5,000 barely pays the rent for a decent office for 2 months. Then I'll rent a cheap office. And the employees? I'll hire freelancers. And the clients? I'll figure out a way to get some. Mike looked at his friend with a mixture of pity and irritation. Derek, you're living in a fantasy. I'm being optimistic. No, you're being unrealistic. Mike, at least now I have a chance. A chance for what? To make it work. Make what work? Your lies? My life. Your life based on lies isn't a life, Derek. It's better than the life I had before. What life did you have before? You worked honestly, earned your money, didn't owe anyone. And I was alone, selling soda on Miami Beach. Better alone and honest than married and a liar. It's easy for you to say. You didn't fall in love with a colonel's daughter. So what? If she really loves you, your profession shouldn't matter. Of course it matters, it always matters. Only to superficial people. Everyone is superficial when it comes to money and social status. Not everyone. Most people. Are you including Ashley in that category? Derek hesitated before answering. No, Ashley is different. Then why don't you tell her the truth? Because I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that she isn't as different as I think. Ah, now you're being honest. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. Maybe, but I'm a coward who managed to marry the woman he loves. And who could lose everything when the truth comes out. If it comes out. When it comes out, Derek. When, not if. Maybe it never will. Of course it will. Do you think you can keep a shell company running forever? Not a shell company, a real one. In 2 weeks, if I have to. Derek, you're losing touch with reality. I'm being determined. You're being stubborn. The conversation was interrupted by Tony's approach, who had noticed Derek had been talking to someone for a long time. Derek, my friend, how are things? Tony approached with a forced smile. All settled, Mr. Tony. Settled how? The money. I got it. The 7,500? I got it. That's good. What a relief. I can make the transfer right now. Perfect. But remember, the other half next week. Don't worry. Derek made the transfer immediately. Tony checked his phone and confirmed the receipt. Pleasure doing business with you, Derek, and congratulations on the wedding. Thank you. Your wife is a very beautiful young lady, and she seems to come from a good family. Yes, she does. A rich family from the looks of it. It's not about the money, Derek defended himself. Of course not. Tony smiled ironically. It's about love. Exactly. Even so, it's good to marry into a family that can help with business, right? I didn't marry for interest. I know, you explained it to me, it was for love. It was. And by coincidence, love showed up in a rich family. It really was a coincidence. How lucky for you. Yeah. I hope that luck continues next week. What do you mean? For you to get the other half of the money. I will get it. I'm sure you will. After all, now you're part of an important family. The way Tony spoke made it clear that he knew exactly what Derek's strategy was, and that made the young man feel even more uncomfortable. Mr. Tony, can I ask you a question? Sure. How did you manage to get into the party? I have my contacts. I know people who work in event planning. And your friends? My friends are around. Discreet as always. They're not going to cause any trouble, right? Only if you cause trouble for me. I won't cause any. Then everything is fine. Tony walked away, circulating through the hall again. Derek felt relieved to have solved the immediate problem, but he knew he had only postponed the crisis. Did you manage to pay? Asked Mike. I did. And how are you going to get the rest next week? I'll figure it out. Man, you still don't have any plan. I have a week to think. A week to invent more lies. A week to solve the problems. Derek, you're not solving problems, you're multiplying them. What do you mean? Now you owe the Colonel, you still owe Tony, and you still have to invent a company. But I have resources to work with. What resources? The 5,000 that are left. $5,000 don't work miracles, Derek. Yes, they do. You just have to know how to use them. How? I rent a small office, set up a website, print some business cards. And the employees? In the beginning, just me. And when the Colonel wants to meet your team, I'll hire some freelancers to show up that day. Hire them with what money? I'll think of a way. Derek, you're improvising everything. I'm being creative. You're being irresponsible. Mike, at least now I have a real chance to make it work. A real chance? You're planning to hire actors to pretend they're your employees. It's temporary, until I can get real employees. And when will you get real employees? When I get real clients. And when will you get real clients? When I have a real company. And when will you have a real company? When... Derek stopped mid-sentence, realizing he was in a vicious circle. See? You don't have any plan. I do. I just need time to organize everything. How much time? A few weeks. Derek, in a few weeks you'll be even more buried in lies. Or I will have managed to turn the lies into truth. It doesn't work like that. Why not? Because a lie is a lie. It doesn't magically become true. But I can make it become true. How? By working, by trying hard, by making the company really work. With what knowledge? With what experience? I'll learn. In 2 weeks? If I have to. Derek, you have no idea what you're saying. I do. I'm talking about determination. You're talking about fantasy. Mike, let me ask you something. Do you believe in me? I do. Then give me a chance. What chance? A chance to prove that I can make this work. Derek, I don't want you to sink even deeper. I won't sink. I will succeed. And if you don't? If I don't, I'll tell the truth to everyone. I promise. You promise? I promise. Mike looked at his friend, trying to gauge if he was being sincere. How many weeks do you want? 2, just 2 weeks. And if in 2 weeks you haven't managed to set up a real company, you'll tell everything? I will. To Ashley? To the Colonel? To everyone? To everyone. All right. 2 weeks. But if you don't keep your promise, I'll tell them myself. Understood. And Derek? What is it? Good luck. Thank you. Mike walked away, leaving Derek alone with his thoughts. The young man looked around the hall, seeing all the guests celebrating his wedding. Ashley was radiant, posing for more photos with her family. He had managed to solve the immediate problem with Tony, but he knew the real challenges were just beginning. He now had 2 weeks to create a real company or confess everything and destroy his marriage. Ashley approached, still beaming with happiness. My love, are you okay? You look worried, she noticed. I'm fine, just a little tired. The party is beautiful, isn't it? My father made sure everything was perfect. It is. Your father is an amazing man. He likes you very much. He always says how lucky he is to have a hard-working and honest son-in-law. Every word was like a stab to Derek's heart. Ashley, can I ask you a question? Of course. Would you have married me if I were, I don't know, a street vendor? Ashley laughed. What a strange question. Why are you thinking about that? Just curious. Of course I would have married you. I fell in love with you, not your profession. Really? Really? Although I admire your dedication to business, what won me over was your character. Derek felt worse and worse. Ashley had fallen in love precisely with the qualities he had pretended to have. And your family? Would they accept a street vendor? My family wants me to be happy. If you make me happy, they accept you. Even if I had no money? Derek, why these questions? You're worrying me. It's just newlywed jitters. My love, no matter what happens, we'll face it together. That's what marriage is for. Together, Derek repeated. Always together. Ashley, do you promise you'll always trust me? I promise. But you also have to promise that you'll always be honest with me. I promise, Derek lied once again. Then everything is fine. Ashley kissed him and walked away to continue greeting the guests. Derek stood still, feeling the weight of all the lies he had told and all the promises he didn't know if he could keep. The party continued until the end of the evening. Derek managed to keep up appearances, but his heart was heavy with guilt and worry about the future. When they finally returned home, Ashley commented on how perfect the day had been. Derek agreed, but he knew the perfection was just an illusion based on lies. My love, I'm so happy, Ashley said as she got ready for bed. Me too. I can't wait to start our life together. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Interesting? She laughed. Is that all? It's going to be wonderful, Derek corrected himself. That's better. While Ashley slept, Derek lay awake thinking about the next steps. He had 2 weeks to create a real company or destroy his marriage by confessing the truth. For the first time since he had started this whole charade, Derek wondered if it wouldn't have been better to be honest from the start. But now it was too late to turn back. Either he managed to make the lies become truth, or he would lose everything. End of story. So, what did you all think of this story? Do you believe Derek will manage to turn his lies into reality, or will everything come crashing down? Leave in the comments what you would do in his place. Would you tell Ashley the truth, or try to maintain the charade? We love reading your honest opinions. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss other exciting stories like this one.